and financing phases have been drafted to kind of plot out how this will unfold. With the first kind of milestone, the plan is to get the facilities modernization plan to the New York State Department of Ed in September. Okay. And that will get the ball rolling.
Great. Is that something that we'll see beforehand, or that we need to approve or authorize? Or
I believe this plan is only subject to the district's approval.
Okay.
It's a requirement that SED has placed on the district, as they have with Rochester.
Gotcha.
And so it's kind of separate from JSCB. It's just that SED has linked the two.
Got it.
Doesn't prohibit us from sharing.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure that we're doing our part. But I think if nothing else, just for awareness, would be good for everybody to see it when it's ready.
And it'll become somewhat a related component to the JSCB comprehensive plan, which we will see for the specifics of Phase 3.
Good. Yeah. Some of us haven't been around at the beginning of a new JSCB phase, so this is all new to, I know, me and probably Karen and Steve. I don't know. You've come and gone for.
I've managed to miss the beginning of all of them.
Okay.
I
So,
get
you
into
too,
it,
Tony?
but
All right.
not until after things have settled down.
So
Best part.
right. So again, I think we're all anxious just to see the path forward and to be helpful wherever we can. So again, just encourage everybody from SCSD, engineering staff, and everyone else just to keep us posted, and we'll do what we can to move it along.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
And that completes my report.
Okay. All right. Next up, we have our program manager report, and we'll welcome Chris up to the microphone.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So not a whole lot to report out, kind of a short report this month, but we'll run through it nonetheless. So just all of our change orders are in 100%. I think I reported that out last month, but just wanted to recover that. So that's a huge hurdle to have everything have been submitted. I do have 4 final payments remaining. My anticipation was that we would be approving those today. Unfortunately, there's a couple things that didn't quite get done. The pay applications are actually already drafted and sitting there, and just was subject to a few things, some turnover stock, verification of a tab report, which is a balancing report for some remedial work that was performed, and a couple other little odds and ends that didn't quite come through. So therefore, I'm not prepared to release the final payment application to the general contractor, which obviously is subsequent to that is the payment to the architect and to CNS, final payments that is for those. So we will get there next month. And I'm going to make sure that they get there. So just between vacations and the summer crunch here, those things just didn't quite get there, and we want to make sure that we've collected those before we release the final. So that's where we are on those. And in terms of final cost reports, we're still kind of in the same boat that we were last month with respect to Tranche 2. We have 4 out of 6 reports have been submitted. The other 2 have basically been formulated because we are financially complete on those other projects. It was just a matter of solving. Got a couple of things hanging out there. We need the final payment, obviously, for Henniger, and then the other one is the Elms component before we put that final cost report in that we were hoping to resolve, bring resolution to a claim that was outstanding. So that's where we are with that one, and that's really where we are. So, any questions?
Questions for Chris?
You get to see me again next month. So
Great.
all right,
Look
thank
forward
you.
to it. Thank you, Chris. All right, looks like next up is our financial statement, and we will welcome Donna to the podium for our packet while we're waiting.
Good morning.
Good morning. Looks like we have,
We have our long
full report.
statement. Yes, we have a full statement this
Great.
month. I'll give everybody a chance to turn down to page 5 because that's where I'm going to start. So a couple of the highlights for this month, for June, we had some interest earnings, we had National Grid energy incentive rebates, and we also had vendor payments that were approved at the May and the June meetings. Those all got paid in June. So at the end of June, we had $12.5 million in both Phase 1 and Phase 2 cash. As you can see there, some of it's being held for debt service. So compared to the May statement, cash did decrease by $469,000, and that was due to the vendor payments, interest earnings, and the National Grid incentive rebates. And so also included in the assets is a total capital assets of $406.5 million. That represents all the project activity up to 6/30/22. So we are currently working on closing out all of the projects for up to 6/30/23. So that number will change significantly. And I just want to mention that we are prepping for our audit, and that is upcoming. We'll really start to ramp up toward the end of September, and then audit will begin beginning of October. So you should see a final financial report at the November meeting, which is the norm for us. So you'll see those numbers change significantly as we close projects. Total liabilities at the close of June is $297.4 million, and that does include bonds and premiums payable for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects. So at the end of June, the total unaudited net position is $121.6 million. So now I'm going to go on to page 6. And page 6 is our statement of sources and expenditures. So for Phase 1 sources, we had, that includes $11.7 million of pass-through funding from the district for debt service payments. We also have $724,000 that we received from federal subsidy payments, and we earned some interest of $772 on, we have it's on our bond. Some of our bonds earned the interest for this month. So our total year-to-date expenditures for Phase 1 is the total of $10.7 million that we paid in principal and interest payments, and those were paid in last November and this past May. The $975,000 is a payment on our JSCB bonds, and that's being held in our debt service reserve. It's called the sinking fund, and that will be held until maturity, which is in 2027. That's how the federal government wants to be paid back. So that is considered a payment, but we're just holding it currently in that sinking fund. So you'll see that concurrently, year after year until, it's a sinking fund, that's what we call it in the accounting world. So once that builds up to what we owe the federal government on the principal of the $15 million JSCB bonds from back in Phase 1, once we build that up to where it's the total principal payment, then it will get paid in 2027. So you will see this year after year, okay? And then we had the operating transfer out, which went out to the district of the $724,000. Once that federal subsidy payment comes in, we give it out to the district, and the district uses it to help pay the debt service payments for Phase 1. So for Phase 2, our total sources was $22.8 million of pass-through funding, and that was also for debt service payments. Our National Grid incentive rebates, that went up by $164,000 in June, which we took in. So that brings us up to $437,000, and that's for this year only. We did have some prior years. And our earnings on investments was $196,000 total for this year. And then we had the Ed Smith claim settlement, which happened, I think back last September for $270,000. So our total capital outlay to this point is $8.2 million, and our total debt service payments for the all of 22-23 was $22.8 million for Phase 2. So on to page 6. I'm sorry. Yes, wait a minute. Where am I? Page 5, 6, I'm going on to 7. And 7, that's our cash flow statement. And this report represents all the sources and disbursements on a cash basis that flowed through all the JSCB accounts. So the actual figures are provided for last July all the way to this June. And you'll see that we are currently, everything that I just mentioned is in the June column. Income and expenses. So we are currently at $12.5 million, of which $6.5 million is being held for debt service. So, and of course, we still have final payments to be made. And now I'm going to go on to page 8. And this is our inception to date report. It shows total sources and expenditures from the very beginning to today. And for phase 1, of course, you'll see there's 141.6 million in sources and 141.6 in outlay. And then on phase 2, we have 293.1 million in our sources column. And then we have $287.6 million in incidental and construction costs. And of course, I just added that last page, which is just a summary of what we normally do on a monthly basis. So does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, great.
Don?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. All right, last on the agenda, looks like we have one resolution, so I'll turn it back over to Joe.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would also note that this is our first meeting without an ICO report, because as you may recall, Landon and Ryan finished their work last month with their final report.
Thanks for that reminder, Joe. It was a great report.
So they were pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
So we have just resolution number 9, which would pay our monthly bills for last July.
Move.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Any other business to come before the board? Just want to make 2 notes before we close out. One, just want to congratulate the superintendent and his team for summer graduation, which we were at, I think, just earlier this week. But great to see a bunch of kids that put in some hard work over the summer to get across that stage. It was great to see. So nice job, superintendent. Congrats on that, and importantly to our kids. And speaking of kids, I want to give a shout out to a young man here in the crowd, Kenny Lancherman over here, who's sitting to the side, is a rising senior at Henniger. Student body president, Kenny, is that right? And has been an intern in our office, in the mayor's office this summer, and has been killing it. I tell him all the time how I was nowhere near where he is at his age. So there are big things ahead. So Kenny, just wanted to thank you for all of your service to the city. Wish you the best of luck in your senior year. And I think worth noting for the JSCB board that this will be probably your first time that in high school that there isn't major construction work happening in your school. So, what's that?
We did the guidance offices.
Are we done with the work is the question, Tom. Okay. All right. Hang in there. Okay. Good.
Kenny's also going to do an address at our convocation for the entire staff.
Awesome.
So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
He also did a tour with us, impromptu, helped us out. Talked about it a few months ago. He was a huge help.
So keep up the great work, Kenny. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.